We have two education initiatives that we're working on. One is an initiative that would put into the Constitution California students have a right to high quality education. And the other one we're working on is adding a personal finance requirement to high school graduation.
Oh, nice, yeah.
And as somebody who burdened myself with credit card debt because I saw the free credit card offers when I got to college and didn't really know how to manage it all and didn't know that the interest was so huge. I think it's great, especially now with social media being the main source of information for kids on personal finance. There's a lot of bad info out there. So I like that measure as something that we can really push for.
All right. Hello and welcome to another episode of Sacktown Talks. Today we're excited to be joined by Roger Salazar of ALSA Strategies. Roger, how's it going? Thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me. Everything's going great. Can't be, can't complain. Everything is going smooth. It's like that song. I'm living that semi-charmed kind of life, and I'm enjoying it.
Gosh.
Without the title, not the lyrics to that song.
Exactly, right? Explicit warning,
Exactly.
Everyone. Excited to be joined here by you, Roger, expert in communication. So we got high hopes for you on this one.
All right, thanks. Yeah.
I guess for those people out there who don't know who the hell you are, Roger, why don't you explain to them who you are and how you got there?
Yeah, sure. I'm the son of farm workers in Lodi, California, from Lodi, California, who eventually moved and started doing
Wine country.
It was wine country. It's funny because my aunts and uncles who used to work the vineyards out there now own the vineyards out there.
Wow.
So, pretty strong, I think, family success stories out there. When I got to college, I was going to be a dentist and wasn't very good at chemistry or math.
Right.
So I was like, maybe I'll find another path. And I was really good at current events, history. I loved history. I loved, political science. So I pursued that path and made my way up, volunteered on some campaigns. I volunteered on Patty Garamendi's campaign when she ran for Congress in San Joaquin. And then eventually made my way to Congress, where I worked for Lucille Roybal Allard as her first press secretary when she was first elected to Congress. Did a couple of other campaigns, went to grad school, and when I was in grad school, they had said that you need to take an internship, and I had already worked on Capitol Hill, worked on some campaigns.
So were you working in D.C. or locally?
I worked in D.C. And moved out to D.C. and went to grad school at George Washington University, their Graduate School of Political Management program. And I wanted a program that combined campaign management, which was the major that they offered, with media relations.
They had a manager. Wow.
Yeah, so it was campaign management, and so I petitioned to take some courses from George Washington University's regular political science program and their communications program, and basically created what was called a media management major for my master's degree, which combined campaign work with media relations.
And what year is this?
This is 93, 94.
So pre-internet.
It was. Yeah. In fact, I wrote a paper for grad school about how the internet would never work.
Yeah.
It was, it was so slow. This is the old 14.4 dial-up, and there was no search engines. And I remember trying to use it for some of the campaign models that we were working on, and it just didn't work. It was just so frustrating and slow. And so don't ever count on me for tech advice.
You know what's interesting? I love talking to campaign guys from back then, and they would talk about jamming fax machines.
Oh, yeah.
How you'd send faxes to the opponent's fax machine to jam them up.
Dial it up 100 times so that they would keep it rolling. Absolutely. Yeah. I had to take an internship. And I was, fighting my guidance counselor at the time, saying, like, I don't really need one because I already worked on Capitol Hill. And she's like, well, we have one that's open and available. It's in the White House press office. And it was basically the intern for Mike McCurry, who was the press secretary to President Clinton. And it was the same week he started.
Right.
So basically, I said, yeah, I'll take that one. Rolled in. It was a 3-month internship in the White House press office. And after my internship ended, I just kept coming back. I just said, no, I like this. I'm going to stick around. And after about 5 months, they were like, we should probably pay this guy. And so they gave me the worst job in the White House, which was the overnight clips guy. Again, pre-internet, you got to cut them out by hand, lay them out on a drafting board and basically put together a clip packet every morning. But it really sort of gave me a perspective on sort of the finished product of the news and what the press office was looking for. And then moved my way up the ranks in the White House, ended up being assistant press secretary. I was the Western desk, handled all of the Western states for the White House. worked on the Gore campaign, opened up his press operation for his presidential campaign. And when that didn't work, came back to California and was deputy press secretary for Governor Davis. So I came back to California in 2000, and I've been back home ever since. And then press secretary on his campaign, on his reelection campaign. And then the rest was history. I ended up going ahead to start working for a PR firm. I worked for Porter Novelli, Donna Lucas, when she was the head of Porter Novelli here in Sacramento, and then did that for a little bit. Again, kept doing random campaigns. We worked on the Edwards campaign in North Carolina for a brief stint, and then started a campaign / PR firm with Andrew Acosta, who is a brilliant strategist and an old high school friend of mine. So we started a firm together that lasted about 6 or 8 years. And then, so him handling all the campaign sort of side of things, I'd handle the press side of things, and worked on a bunch of great campaigns. Left that for a little bit, and then and about now, almost 8-9 years ago, started Also Strategies. And we are a media relations campaign management firm, mostly specializing in communications issues. We have a wide variety of clients. We have candidates, we have ballot initiatives, we have industry clients. We focus a lot on education. My partner, Hillary McLean, we were deputy press secretaries together for Governor Davis. She was also with Superintendent of Public Instruction, Jack O'Connell. So she has a very strong education portfolio. So with that background, we've been having a lot of fun over the last few years.
So you were in the White House press office from what, 94 to
99.
99.
Yeah.
So you got to deal with all that Monica Lewinsky stuff.
Oh yeah. So we were when I was when they had the first government shutdown, when Newt Gingrich and Clinton were going at it, and they had that government shutdown. They assigned every office got to have essential employees, which basically meant we all knew that everybody was going to get paid eventually. Right. But basically, a lot of the staffers got to take a vacation during the government shutdown. Mike McCurry was designated the essential employee for the press office, and I was a designated essential employee because I was the clips guy. Right. So it was the two of us in the press operation. And again, that shutdown was, Monica Lewinsky was in the chief of staff's office. We didn't really come across each other very, very often, but and I do remember seeing her there. Yeah. And she was, and again, there weren't that many people in the White House, but I was pretty focused on trying to get some sleep because my job was overnight. So 10 o'clock at night to 7 in the morning, and give you very little time for socializing.
Right.
But it was interesting.
It's funny, I don't really remember the White House press secretary being a big deal until the last, 4 years whenever Trump was. It was
exactly. Well, and I think
now it's this must see TV. Can we stump the press secretary and
Well, I always remembered it because I learned a lot from Mike McCurry. And he had these little tricks that he would use if he didn't want to get quoted. He knew that TV wanted clean shots.
Right.
So if he didn't want to be on TV saying something, he had a cup of ice water next to him, and he'd start chewing ice in the middle of his response, knowing that they wouldn't use it. You know, so he was very interesting to sort of watch him, work with the press. But it wasn't like back then. It was not like it is today. I mean, it was much more. The press secretary was in the background more so than what you see today. Now they're kind of celebrities.
No, yeah, they're totally
absolutely
jobs afterwards.
Yeah.
Did you ever come across? I remember when I was in college, and we learned about poli sci.
Yeah.
We learned about the Clinton campaign. We learned about the Raging Cajun. And George Stephanopoulos and how they use the media.
And James Carville was great. He was fun. He was a lot of fun to be around. I did want to go back and share one quick story for you though. Yeah. There was a scene in during the Lewinsky incident when President Clinton was in the Roosevelt room, and he pointed to the cameras and said, "I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky." Yeah. He was looking right at me.
Yeah.
I was the guy that brought the press into the Roosevelt room, and so I was standing in between all the cameras, like they were all over my shoulders, and he was looking right at me.
Did you practice that with him?
No, but I'm going to tell you, when he did that, I was like, yeah, he didn't do that. He totally, and again, my imagination was such that I couldn't imagine where all of this supposedly took place. It was such a small area, and my imagination was such that that could never happen right there. So just shows how naive I am.
That's too funny.
Yeah. So yeah, no, but all those guys again. I would when I was doing the clips overnight. I was the guy who actually had the security clearance to go into the West Wing to drop off the clips, and so I had George Stephanopoulos. I put his clips on his desk, the president, vice president, chief of staff, all that stuff. It was kind of a heady time to be around there. And again, I was in my 20s, so to be doing all of that, I think you kind of need to be in your 20s because it's long hours, it's grueling. You put in a lot more than you get compensated for. But I always sort of I thought it's like my third degree. It was an education being there, sort of seeing how they handled it, just how they handled the Lewinsky scandal, for example, the impeachment, where they had us. I was assistant press secretary at the time, and they basically compartmentalized the operation. They're like, we don't want to. We want to have Gregory Craig be the quarterback for the impeachment issues. Every question about impeachment goes to that team. Everybody else, including me on the Western desk, we focus on putting out press releases about 100,000 new teachers, 100,000 new cops, enterprise zones, tax credits, all that stuff. And so we were just pumping, all of that information out to our local media that we were responsible for, making sure that they kept seeing good news coming out of the White House, which really helped because when the impeachment was over, Clinton was at his most popular levels ever because, hey, he was getting impeached, but he was doing all these great things for the
stock
country.
market was good.
Everything was good.
Business was good.
Prosperity and all sorts of peace and prosperity was great. It was a good time to be around there.
No, that's interesting.
But it also was a time that we really started to learn about, the advent of. At the time, it was talk radio, sort of the precursor to the internet, where all of a sudden you just had these sort of rabid, on both sides, viewpoints that that people could go to. It was like being in their own neighborhood. Before all of that rose, if you had sort of a nutty idea, you were like, well, I'm alone in this. I better be quiet about it. Now, if you've got nutty ideas, you can find 5 or 10 other people on the internet somewhere who are going to share that. And so that emboldens people with those sort of, fringe ideas to think they're more mainstream than they are.
I remember so you had cable, right?
Yeah.
And you had these 24/7 news channels, right?
Yeah.
And they needed something to talk about.
Yeah.
And so it all started kind of with OJ.
Yeah.
And it was 24/7 OJ.
Yeah.
And then I feel like it went from OJ to
that first Iraq
Monica Lewinsky.
Well, yeah, when it was the OJ, the first Iraq, war, and then it just boomed from there. It was during the Lewinsky thing that the Fox really took off, and you started seeing all this 24/7. Because when I started in the business, the cable news wasn't 24 hours.
Right.
There was a dark time where they signed off. Can you imagine? I mean, just there was a time. In my lifetime where you could turn on the TV late at night and there'd be nothing, just snow, and now there's just, there's almost too much now. You can't even figure out what to choose from. Yeah, it is. So it was an interesting time. And again, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed setting up the operation for the Gore campaign. That was another sort of interesting, time period. I remember we had when George Bush came out with his first fundraising numbers, I think we had raised a record number for a Democratic presidential candidate in the first quarter. So we were proud. We announced our numbers, put out a press release, and I got a call from a reporter who said, from Reuters, who said, yeah, George Bush raised, and essentially I can remember it was like twice as much as we had. And I said, well, let me get back to you. So then, I called the chief of staff, said, George Bush raised this much. What should I say? He's like, why don't you say, really? Let me get back to you. And I said, what? The reporter wrote that down. He wrote that down. He's like, well, it was an honest response. Yeah. He's like, why? And I couldn't use, George Bush was running against Patrick Buchanan, and Angela Baby Buchanan was his sister was his campaign manager. And the reporter said I couldn't use her response, and I was like, "Why?" She was like, "It was fuck." It's just that's an F-bomb. She's like, "I couldn't use hers in the paper, so I used yours." I'm like, "Great." So now I learned that's one of those things where you learn anytime you talk to a reporter, if you anything you say can and will be used in print
Against you.
if you're if you're not careful. So you always have to sort of be careful about what you say.
So man, like you've been like really battle tested, right? You know, White House, Monica Lewinsky, Gore, Bush v. Gore, hanging Chad. You come to the governor's office, you got the recall.
Well, and if you remember, so when I came to the governor's office, he was on the cover of Time magazine as a potential next presidential candidate. California was going great. So I'm like, well, this is going to be easy. I'm going into a place where everybody loves Gray Davis, and within 6 months of me being here, we have a really rough reelection. Frankly, he was at his most unpopular during that reelection campaign, and we were surprised. I mean, it was only the luck of having Bill Simon, be our opponent. That we were just surprised that he got the numbers he did. It just sort of showed you sort of how split California was and how far Republicans had fallen in the state during that election, and so the recall didn't really surprise me because he just was so unpopular at the time, and then the energy crisis exacerbated it, and the budget crisis exacerbated it, and Gray was a brusque governor to his friends. And so when you're brusque with your friends, or they'll remember it, and they didn't necessarily stand up for him when his time of need came, because he didn't stand up for them, when their time of need was. So it just kind of all of that really sort of ended up crashing down, and that recall was a tough period. So yeah, I know I've been through impeachment scandals. I've been through campaign finance scandals with Gore. I've been through through the energy crisis and the budget crisis with Gray. So yeah, I battle tested. They don't call us flax for nothing, right?
That's funny. So that's why one thing like a lot of PR companies offer is crisis management.
Yeah.
Right? So your resume is pretty
so
good on that.
And we again, we teach people about with crisis communications, always have a plan in advance. If you're putting a plan together, in the middle of a crisis, you're already behind. So it's good for we just counsel, just be prepared for for any eventuality.
Yeah. So kind of what's your business today? Kind of who are your clients, and kind of
So we're working on a couple of ballot initiatives right now. We have 2 education initiatives that we're working on. One is an initiative that would put into the Constitution that California students have a right to high quality education. So it's just a change in the language on the Constitution there. And the other one we're working on is one that I really like. It is adding a personal finance requirement to high school graduation. Oh, nice, and again, as somebody who was who burdened myself with credit card debt because I saw the free credit card offers when I got to college and didn't really know how to manage it all, and didn't know that the interest was so huge and all that stuff. I think it's great for especially now with social media being sort of the main source of information for kids on personal finance. There's a lot of bad info out there, and they got to be able to figure this stuff out. And maybe having a personal finance course is so I like that measure as something that we can really push for. We have had Doris Matsui as a client, working her race for a while now. And then we have, like I said, we have a number of education clients that my partner works with. Working on with the California Student Aid Commission. We want to make sure people are aware that they when they can sign up for FAFSA, and get their financial aid stuff out. So we do a lot of that work. And then there are causes that are near and dear to my heart. We do the newsletter for the Farm Workers Cooperative, La Cooperativa Campesina de California, which again, my parents were farm workers when they came to California. So, providing information to farm workers is something that I really enjoy. It's one of those clients that we don't do for the money. We do just because it helps it makes us feel like we're giving back.
Right. So media has changed a lot. Yeah. As you're saying, as you've been in this business, kind of what is the challenges today with social media? As you said, we have cable, we have all these channels, but people skip the commercials. So how do you get your message across?
Well, it's harder and harder these days. And especially as you sort of start doing paid ads or, paid, digital marketing or digital media. I learned this in an effort that we had recently, where we bought ads to basically, to direct a message to a certain legislator's office, right? And they weren't seeing them. And you learn that if you pay for the premium subscription to your newspaper, you don't get ads.
Right.
And most of these offices, because that's their home districts, have, they have, they don't get ads because they've got the premium subscription to whatever, newspaper is in their locality. And so you have to figure out, working with digital teams and working with marketing teams and figuring out sort of what works best and sort of how to get that stuff across. Our area of expertise is really sort of the the messaging part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So we work with people who understand that stuff better than we do, and partner with them on all the analytics and sort of how to actually get that reach. For us, we just focus on trying to put together a good message that we can then sort of ship to the media, to social media, and then to our digital teams that we work with. But it's harder and harder because you have to go where the eyeballs are, right? And it used to be,
and we all have ADHD now. We have our eyeballs
exactly,
20 places at once.
And so you just have to make sure that that you have every component covered in trying to get something. So it's actually a lot more effort these days because again, if you could target your local newspaper, your local TV, and your local radio, and you're good.
Right.
Now you can target those. There's less people seeing those. So where are they? Well, they're on over the top. They're you got to get them through Hulu, got to get them through Pandora. Got to get them through TikTok, and TikTok was one of those ones that as a graybeard, I resisted for a little while because I was like, come on, that's not really. And it is your audience. Your audience is looking at TikTok. They're looking at Instagram. They're looking at these things. So you need to figure out a way to insert your messages to make sure that. That they're catchy. And so it's almost a lot more. You turn your media relations into marketing much more these days than ever before.
It's kind of interesting. It's kind of like we have like so many options and so many different media stations. Like I always kind of joke with a lot of people that people still go to the back. Campaign consultants are always like mail.
Yeah,
and maybe it's just so convoluted and confusing out there that the billboard mail is just like your. The thing that people are forced to look at because you're forced to check your mail, you're forced to throw stuff away.
Yeah, no, it. I mean, you are, you are going to look at it. And it better be on the cover because chances are people aren't getting into the middle of it. So that's part of it. It's the one thing that I get pitched a lot is text messages and phone calls. And man, I don't answer my phone anymore. Every other call is offering me Medicare insurance or something, or some sort of a scam that they've got going on. So I just don't answer that anymore. And even if it was sort of a legit, hey, I'm the candidate. I can't feel like I trust it. Right? People can't feel like they trust it anymore. And the same with text messaging. You're overwhelmed with text messaging, so you have to really sort of figure out, all right, what's the actual impact of what you're going to be doing? How much are you going to get for your dollar? On a campaign, and then on the free media side of things. We're still, we're having to sort of, pitch sexier stories. They really, when you're talking to even mainstream media, even like your SAC-Bs or Chronicles, they want clicks, right? So, so the reporters may not say that, but their editors do because they're very aware of it. So you've got to be a little bit more sensational than you had been in the past. And it's rough if you want to get a policy piece out, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, how do you sort of do that? And I always sort of go back to one of the basics is we've always talked about this whenever we talked about policy is how does it impact me? As a listener, a reader, a viewer, how does it impact that person? Because if they can't see how it impacts them, they're not going to care.
Right.
And so you just have to keep working to make sure that, in all these different mediums, there's a way for somebody to say, okay, I get that impacts me.
Right.
Or if that fails, hey, that's funny, add a little humor to it and see if that works.
Well, it's kind of funny, like, as you said, you pitch a story, I don't know, like in some of the kind of small niches I work in, like, it's like a fishbowl, right?
Yeah.
Like we see the story and everyone in the industry sees it, but nobody outside the industry sees
exactly.
it. Right?
You got to get it out there. And that's all, again, making it relatable to somebody, right? Mm-hmm. It's how does it impact me? Does it, there's that whole story about the whole thing of like, what, the news will tell you what the news is. And I have sort of a whole sort of litany of things that are newsworthy. Is it timely? Is it, is it topical? Is it, is it relevant to like, is it relevant to Christmas time? Hey, there's a lot of, it's Christmas time and people don't have places to sleep. So you tie Christmas with homelessness or, stuff like that. So you just have to figure out ways in which to make it so that, that the news will cover it and that it's relatable to somebody.
It's kind of interesting. So like, I know you're a big time 49ers fan.
Yeah.
Your son, you're telling me your son writes for the Niners.
49 Web Zone,
yeah. The staple of, sports used to be sports talk radio, right? And like, I don't even know what the listenership of KNBR is anymore. I don't know. How do you tell that? Do you guys have stats like that? Do you know how many people are reading a SACB article or how many people are listening to certain radio stations and things like that?
Unfortunately, not in real time. So you sort of have to rely on like, hey, what's it been? And you kind of sort of look at the trends, and you can sort of see the trends. With newspaper readership going down. Print circulation is down, and what's going up, and so, there's outfits out there like Nielsen and Arbitron and others that sort of measure those things. And they're actually starting to do a better job of figuring out what the trends are on social media as well, to give you sort of an idea of how many eyeballs are on each, social media property. So there's ways in which to delve into those analytics. And let's look at the ones. Let's not waste time on ones that 2 people are reading. We have some blogs in Sacramento. I'm not going to name who they are. But people get worked up about, and I'm like, why? There's like, they've got 2 readers, and it's the writer and his mom. Let's not worry about the stuff that we don't need to worry about and focus on the stuff that we do need to focus on.
Yeah, that's the cool thing, I guess, by like these social things, right? Yeah. Like I can see how many views you have on YouTube, how many views you have on Twitter,
how many followers you have,
exactly.
And again, I think X, not formerly Twitter, was actually very good about, you can look at a post and sort of see the interaction that people have had with it, and all right, that's getting some attention, that's getting retweets, that's getting likes, so yeah, let's worry a little bit more about that, or hey, it's nobody's it's not making an impact, let's not worry about it too much.
It's in the void.
Yeah.
Do you ever use like social media, I guess, to like test? Because you said you're like a message creator. How do you know what's a good message? What will resonate with?
Well,
people?
I mean, you really can't beat going back to good old fashioned polling, right? And so whenever we work on these campaigns, we try to gather as much information as we can. Some of it we do it through internal polls. Some of it there's external stuff that's out there. You sort of whether it's a local newspaper doing a poll about issues, right? We know that these are the issues that are important. So we try to sort of collect as much information as we can to see sort of what's really popping with people, and then if it's something that we're strong with that issue, let's talk about it, because we have a great strength here, right?
What's a great strength? So like when you're polling, it like.
Well,
70, 80%?
Yeah, I mean that'd be great. But anything that sort of has that anything that 30% or more of the people are talking about, is worthwhile, I think. If it's in, if it starts rising 40, 50, then yeah, let's keep talking about it. If it's 60, 70, holy crap, we better be talking about this, right? And if it's up in the hundreds, 90 or 100, then red alert. Let's make sure that we've got a position on this.
It's kind of like interesting, like let's say, for example, an industry like, I don't know, like tobacco, right? They've been like vilified, they've kind of been beaten into their corner.
Sure.
But at one time they used to, have their heyday, and they were, good. Like, so like, how do you attack like, a client like that, a client who is seen negatively, finding positives for them?
Well, that's that's always a danger. There was one effort. I think Juul had this when they were doing their Juul had their stuff where they wanted to talk about tobacco. Obviously nobody likes tobacco, and that's they're the bad guys. But they wanted it. I think their pitch was, this stuff helps you get off tobacco. It helps you go away from cigarettes. Because you're using this, and it sort of helps wean you off of like the hard stuff, I guess. And it didn't really work as well as they wanted it to. But I think that's sort of one of those that you try to sort of find a way to get in. I just don't think anybody bought it. I had the soda, the soda industry when they were fighting the sugar taxes in a couple of places, and look, people drink Coke, Diet Cokes, and Coke Zeros, and Pepsi Zeros, and all that stuff. I mean, their sales aren't dropping dramatically, anywhere. So, it's the same thing. Like when you talk about, petroleum industry, everybody gasses up their cars, right? So, so. There's ways. It's like their argument was that it was that it was regressive, and there sometimes you can sort of make those arguments, and sometimes you get an audience like in Berkeley, for example, they're just not buying it. They're never going to buy it, and so they're like, yeah, we'll pay the extra because we're not drinking that stuff anyways, right? So you really sort of have to know who you're talking to and who your audience is, and figure out something that works for them.
Right. What are some of like the more kind of like memorable like campaigns you've seen, either worked on or not, where you've seen like something that was totally like flopping, and then you just saw a message take hold and it like passed? Like I kind of remember like Prop 22, for example, like was really polling super low. And they just kind of spent a bunch of money and just kind of like,
I think one of the ones
got a message that hooked and finally took over.
One of the ones, and this was sort of the last gasp of like stopping marijuana legalization, for example, in California, was when Prop 19, we did Prop 19 with the police chiefs and others, on a marijuana legalization initiative that it was very, normal. Legalizing marijuana was polling really well. And it was only a matter of time before California was going to do it at that point. So we were kind of like, we didn't have a lot of money on that effort either. So we had to look at what worked for us with that effort. And with Prop 19, it was that the way the thing was written kind of benefited one outfit. It was Oaksterdam in Oakland. The whole thing was set up that it was just basically going to benefit one company, and everybody else is going to kind of get shut out. So we just decided to switch the message away from legalization, which we thought was not something that we could fight against, and just talk about what a jumbled legal nightmare it was. This is a poorly written, poorly blah blah blah, all that stuff, and that really worked because you could show editorial writers, you can show reporters, look at the way this thing is written and sort of how this thing is that only benefits these guys. If you were another grower, you wouldn't be able to do it. Right. We actually started, by the time we ended that campaign, we had other marijuana growers who were opposed to it because they were like, we don't want to give all our business to those guys. Right. So it was one that we thought when going into it, we're going to have a rough time because Californians seem to be ready for this. It was just fortunately for us, they wrote a terrible initiative on that one, and it worked out well.
So what was it polling at before you guys kind of got your hands on it? And
legalization in and of itself was polling in the 60s and 70s, right? So like, really it's about time. The measure itself, when we polled it, just on the I think of on the ballot label, it did all right. It wasn't, in the 60s, but when all you had to do was sort of do 1, 2, 3 messages of knocking it down about the jumbled legal nightmare. I think that's what we kept using that over and over again, and it just fell through the roof.
So you look at polling a lot, right?
Yeah.
You've seen them up and down the state. How often do you get like a fresh poll?
There's fresh polls that happen pretty much quarterly, because you're getting the public polls. So we don't differentiate between having our own targeted private poll for a client is great. And if you have the resources and the money to do that, that's where you want to go, all the time. But PPIC is doing it, Berkeley's doing it, USC is doing polls all the time. So we just take as much information as we can from everywhere. And so you're getting them regularly. And then there's, the more local you get, the better, if especially if it's a local issue. So we try to glean as much as we can. The city of Sacramento, for example, does surveys, of residents, and they kind of post that stuff all the time. So we just kind of take the stuff off their website.
So kind of what issues are you seeing kind of front of mind of the voters, and kind of what's their mood heading into
right now? I think that we're 2024, we're heading into it. No, this retail issue is huge. And you've seen, Jim Cooper in Sacramento jump on it. The retail theft issue. I just think people are just fed up. They're tired of it. They see it every day. They see smash and grabs. They see just people walk into stuff and it's like, why am I paying if everybody else is just stealing this stuff? So I think it's a huge issue right now. And I think, elected officials were wise to sort of jump on it. The Israeli-Palestinian issue right now is percolating up because the progressive, left, is going to hold elected officials accountable for at least they're at least making some noise, that worries, I think, electeds all around the country, about the issue, especially of those who are in progressive districts or moderate to progressive districts. I think if you're more on the conservative district or the moderate to conservative district, you're fine. You don't care. It
took over the convention, right?
Yeah. They took over the convention, which I thought was kind of funny to me. It's like, well, they shut down the convention. I was like, I think it was over when they went in there. I think it was
like
already,
something always shuts the convention down, right? Exactly. It was like the nurses a couple years ago.
But I was like, we missed the last speech, I guess, and this year the party had their endorsement vote via email. So they didn't really disrupt anything. Right. So, but again, you have a lot of energetic people out there, and so if you're an elected official, that's cause for concern, right? So, but I think, like I said, retail theft I think is a big issue. Homelessness, especially in Sacramento, in this region, is a big issue. There's concern. I think there's concern about the presidential election coming up because there's really an enthusiasm gap for both parties right now. There isn't a huge sort of Biden contingent, and frankly, Trump's ticked off so many, even people in his own party, that there's just a big enthusiasm gap there. That tends to have an impact on down ballot. If the turnout isn't huge for that, then that's a problem. So I would anticipate that for 2024, what Democrats are going to do is they're going to what we did in 2020. Was Trump was our biggest turnout driver. Mm-hmm. And so I think you're going to sort of see a lot of focus on people turning to, hey, this guy's dangerous, and see if they can generate sort of increase the Dem turnout.
Kind of everyone's kind of like speculating what's Gavin doing? He's traveling internationally. He's debating.
Gavin's. He's
Ron DeSantis. What this week coming up?
Yeah, coming up this week.
Coming as a guy in the media in the know. Kind of what's going on here?
I think it's a no lose for him. Mm-hmm. He's in a decent spot here in California. He beat back a recall. Won re-election, and I think he's in a spot now where if he can continue to be a cheerleader for Biden, mm-hmm. And he expresses that openly that's he's a Biden guy, but the reality is, with Biden's age, to have somebody like Newsom step in.
You saw it here, the president of China comes.
Yeah, exactly. To have someone like Newsom, who's sort of a younger guy, sort of energetic and not afraid to sort of go toe to toe with Republicans. That's good for him. Right. That's good for him. Again, I don't think it's a 2024 play, but it sets him up for 202028 if that's what he wants to do.
You work on the Dem party, the Dem convention, the podium. Yeah. Kind of like, are you expecting anything?
No, I don't expect anything, crazy at this point. We had when I worked the convention when Hillary took the nomination and Bernie Sanders' team was up there, that was one of those ones where you could there was a lot of tension in that hall, with Bernie versus Hillary and Bernie supporters just not they're tenacious, they weren't giving up. So there's a lot more tension there. I don't see that kind of tension in this convention. It may be kind of boring.
It's kind of weird because, I've kind of been told, if Biden wasn't running, it would be chaos. Yeah, the wolves would be going at it. Who are the top Dems in waiting who are just kind of at bay right now?
I think there's clearly Newsom. I think Newsom, is presidential material. Although I hear from my Republican friends and colleagues that nobody wants to be California. That's not a thing. But again,
they all want to live here just a little less than 6 months, though, don't they?
Exactly. Yeah. But there's them. You've got these Governor Whitmer out of Michigan. You've got these governors around the country who are, I think would be good candidates. I still. I just don't know that California's. I just don't know that the United States is ready for it, especially some of those Midwestern states. But man, Pete Buttigieg sounds great whenever he talks. And he's sharp. He responds well to arguments. I just think it's unfortunate that that his orientation is still an issue in a lot of the country, which hopefully one day we overcome, that kind of thing, and maybe he's the guy to do it. But there are some great people out there. And then there's some of the folks who have already been here in California who have gone back to DC, like Javier Becerra, who might be thinking about it. But again, I just don't think anybody's gonna. The wolves are at bay, I guess, until 2028. So we'll see what happens there. Then you've got obviously if Kamala is the VP candidate again, which I expect her to be, then she will be the front runner for that nomination until somebody takes her out.
And then on the other side, it's kind of hard to believe that all the drama, all the craziness, all the indictments, convictions. This guy's bulletproof. He just keeps chugging along.
He said, if you remember correctly, during the first campaign that he did, I could shoot somebody.
It's like Tyson Holyfield.
He said I could shoot somebody in the middle of Times Square, and nobody and people would still vote for me, and it's almost true. And there is sort of no.
Is he more popular today than he was?
I don't know if he is more popular. I don't think he's overall more popular, but with the here's the thing. I don't think he has supporters. I think he has fans, and I think those fans love him no matter what. And it's disconcerting, and it's not really the way we sort of ought to be operating in a democracy. You can tell sort of where the Republicans are going because they keep trying to, and it's in somebody's talking point, because I know talking points when I see them. But somebody created the talking point. Hey, this isn't an actual democracy we live in. We live in a representative democracy, which is we live in in a republic, and and so they're basically trying to set the stage for they don't like things like what happened in Ohio, right. With abortion. So they're like, this country wasn't intended for the masses. It's intended to be a representative democracy, a republic. And so they're trying to make that argument to condition people to think that if their vote doesn't go their way, the popular way, it's okay. And that's not the way we ought to be.
Right. And how come there's no other Republican who can gain traction?
Yeah, I don't know. And I would have thought, again, I think it's probably.
Where are the mods? Are there any out there?
I think it's because they're trying to go after the same base. Ron DeSantis was hugely popular with Trumpers until he decided he wanted to run for president. Right. I mean, they were like, "Oh, we love that guy."
Now he's sanctimonious.
Now he's sanctimonious. Nikki Haley was extremely popular with the Trump group until she decided that she wants to. And it's just like him, whenever he'll have his entire staff, people he handpicked. These are the best people in the world, and if they leave him or leave his orbit, they're idiots. He's a moron. I never liked him anyways. It's like, well, you hired these people. So it doesn't have to make sense anymore. And that's the crazy thing about it.
It's kind of interesting. Like, I know in California, we saw it here where we had the top two primary. Yeah. And we kind of, instead of getting more moderate, individuals here, we've got more extremes, right?
Yeah, it seems like it.
I guess we're seeing this nationally too, without a top two. I guess it's just kind of like a political mood shifting where people are just kind of gravitating towards the extremes.
And again, I blame the internet that I didn't think would ever work.
It hasn't worked. You're right. The thesis is true.
But I blame the internet because, again, you don't have to move off your spot anymore. There's no need for you to have consensus.
Right. You can find your truth.
You can find your truth wherever you want it in the on the World Wide Web, and you can stay there and be comfortable. Whereas before, again, you'd have to sort of find some way. All right, let's figure out how to cut a deal. Let's figure out how to make consensus. You don't have to do that anymore because it's not about getting stuff done in Congress anymore. It's not about it's about scoring political points, and they don't. And frankly, if you're on the Republican side, the less you get done, the better. Great, we didn't do anything. Right. It's just, again, it's baffling, and it's kind of a sad state where we're at right now. But I just don't know how we sort of get out of it, get to a point where we can sort of start having. I think we have to sort of move to the next generation of politicos to figure out if there's some way in which we can sort of start reaching across the aisle like you used to.
Right. Instead of becoming like social media memes at each other.
Exactly. And again, there's always going to be that. Ha, I got you. What is it? Pwned you? Pond?
Right.
I don't know what it is. Again, the gray beard gives it away. But yeah, it's all about sort of, shoving it in the other guy's face. So
yeah. So, besides from communications and all this wonderful stuff you do, you actually are a avid off-roader as well, right?
Yeah.
Kind of what are some of the good spots to off-road up here other than the famous Rubicon Trail?
Rubicon Trail is fantastic. One of the hardest trail up in Northern California is the Fordyce Trail, which is off of...
so it gets more extreme than the Rubicon.
Oh, it gets more extreme. Yeah. And for a shorter period... Fordyce Trail, is the site of an annual event called Sierra Trek that the California Four Wheel Drive Association puts on out at Meadow Lake, and it's got basically 5 major obstacles that you have to get over that are really, really tough, and a couple of water crossings. So that's great. But I enjoy doing stuff like, getting out to the Black Rock Desert, Nevada, it's more what we call overlanding. It's not as necessarily as challenging technically as Rubicon or Fordyce. There's Signal Peak Trail, which is a great one. It's a nice sort of easy one that gets you, to the top of a mountainside up off of 80. I like doing Death Valley. Death Valley in November. Don't do it in the summertime.
Did you do it this year?
I didn't do it this year, but
flowers.
They closed off a lot of it because of road damage that was out there because of the flooding. Or Big Bear down in near Lake Arrowhead they've got some great trail runs out there as well. Ocotillo Wells down in San Diego. I mean, basically from the southern tip of the state to the northern tip of the state, you can find off-roading anywhere. The one area that I would really like to see open, I'm also I was appointed by the governor to the OHMVR Commission, that Off-Highway Motor Vehicle Recreation Commission, so I'm a commissioner there. And one of the challenges we have right now is the potential closure of Pismo Beach, which is the Oceano Dunes State Vehicular Recreation Area. There's been a lot of back and forth on the actual science of it, but it's the only place in California where you can off-road on the beach.
Oh, really?
It'd be a shame if we lost that. We have families from the Central Valley and all over the state that go there. My parents used to go there, would take us down there when we were kids, right around with the mini bikes, and now they've got side by sides, which are a bigger thing.
Yeah. What rig are you running right now?
So I have a 2015 Wrangler Rubicon 4-door that I've got lifted up on Dana 60 axles and 40-inch tires. So it's a very capable. I ran this weekend, the entire Rubicon Trail, which is usually like a 2-day, 3-day trail. Me and my friend ran it all the way through 9 to 4. Got in at 10 a.m., got out at 4:30, and had a good time doing it. Yeah, it was. We had the trail to ourselves. It was awesome. It's amazing how fast you can get through it when there's nobody else on it.
Right.
And we weren't even really pushing that hard. We were just like, well, let's just keep going, see how far we can get. And we got out to the trail in Tahoma.
And with those tires and that height, you don't have to worry about
not too
breaking
much
or denting anything.
Not too much anymore. I'm a clumsy driver, I'll admit. So I have to be extra careful about stuff because I'll just run into rocks.
Right.
And I'm like, what did I hit? The rock. So we made it through just fine. Got out of Tahoma. And then obviously it's a nice little drive back down 50. But yeah, I mean, I've been doing that stuff. My dad, he was very into off-roading. Took us on the Rubicon Trail when we were kids. And there's been a Jeep in the Salazar family since at least 1948. I have a photo of my dad as an infant in my grandmother's arms in front of a 1946 Jeep Willys that was, I guess, my grandfather's farm truck that he used.
Awesome.
So, it's in our blood.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, awesome, Roger. Well, thanks for joining us.
No problem.
If some of our listeners kind of want to check up on you and see what you're up to, or reach out to you, what's the best way to follow you?
Follow me, on X at Roger Salazar, on Instagram at Roger Salazar. My Jeep page at Jeep number 7 is more popular than mine is on Instagram, so you can follow me there. Yeah. Or just go to alzamedia.com. You can sort of see what we're up to.
Okay. Awesome. Fascinating, Roger. Thanks for joining us.
Man.
Good talking with you.
Appreciate it.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Okay.